All right, so let's talk about purfling. Now, purfling is the line. You'll see an inlaid piece of wood that goes all the way around the top and the back of the instrument. That line serves two functions, the first of which is an insurance policy. Is if the instrument is damaged or hit from the edge, the wood of the top or the back will split until it hits that purfling line and stop. That way you don't have to do a major repair as it breaks into the soundboard or the back of the instrument. So we put this groove in there and then put a piece of wood, specifically 3 pieces of wood that are kind of laminated together. They're usually ebony, maple, and ebony, or something of the like with contrast. And that serves as the decorative element that goes around it. Now, purfling has its own history and its own beautiful kind of rabbit hole you can go down. Different thicknesses, different widths tell you different makers and different timelines in history and all sorts of stuff. But how do we get that groove in here? Is a little bit like everything else I do. I do it half modern, half traditional. Traditionally, you have a cutter that will slice the grain on the 2 edges and you'll chisel out the groove. What I actually use is a rotary tool with this little bit on it. To get the groove started, I'll channel it and then I'll make it the right depth that I want with hand tools and then glue in my purfling. So let's go ahead and route out our purfling groove to get it started. All right, let's take a second to appreciate where we are. Getting a lot of the weight off. I've got the top and the back close to roughed out. We can see it there. That's way better than we were just a little while ago with our 2 boards. But now I've gotten them far enough to where I'm gonna put the purfling in. So I need to bend, cut, and do all of that, but before I do that, I have to finish out these grooves. I have to finish out the depth where I want them for where the router left off, and clip in the corners by hand. So I'll zoom y'all in and we can watch some of that happen.
Love, it'll never be seen. It'll be fine. Honey in the moonlight, take you on a cold night. I wanna make you feel nice. I just don't wanna fight. 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 God, I drink to the morning. Honey in the moonlight, take you on a cold night. I wanna make you feel nice. I just don't wanna fight. 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 Dip me in the waters of a cool night. Kiss me in the morning like a bright light. Oh, oh, oh. Promise is a promise, love, I mean it. You can see the future if you lean in. Oh, oh, oh. Honey in the moonlight, take you on a cold night. I wanna make you feel nice. I just don't wanna fight. 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 Take you on a cold night, I wanna make you feel nice. I just don't wanna fight. I just don't wanna fight.
All right, after some hours and hours of sanding and carving, I've got the plates almost like 95% roughed out. They need some fine tuning with some fine chisels and scraper cards. And then we'll get into some hand sanding. But I've got the purfling all trimmed down and shaped with the edge. At the end here, I'll actually put a secondary profile on the other sides of the edges. But for now, we need to do a little bit of carving, quite a bit of scraping to tune in the final edge profiles of our back. the top and the back done. So lots of scraping, lots of sanding to get, you can kind of see a little bit of the profile in here. And it should be a real subtle transition everywhere it goes. It goes as high as about 15 millimeters and as low as 2.5 around the edge. Now the final profiling of the actual edge shape will happen when it's together in a box. So I'm mainly worried about the body up to the purfling. So I've got that done on both of these. And so now it's actually time to start addressing the inside. So I'm gonna change the camera here and you guys can actually see what I do to map out what we have to take out of the body. Okay, so when I first got into making violins, I did a traditional apprenticeship with a man named Tommy Case, who has become a good friend and mentor of mine. But I went into that with some weird preconceived notions about how violins were made. And I know a number of people share the same things, but I thought that a violin was not carved, for whatever reason. I thought it was bent. I thought it was a piece of wood that was actually bent or molded or laminated or something. I don't know. But I didn't realize when it was carved, I was like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. But the main misconception I had was not how it was made, but I thought that a violin top and back were a consistent thickness throughout everything. And that is definitely not the case. So each maker has their own way of profiling a violin shape and how to graduate those things. So this is a little map of the way that I do it. And I've changed some of these numbers since doing my apprenticeship for what I think it should be. And that's the cool part, is that everybody does it slightly differently. And it's really, really slight all over. So you can see in this little piece that I have as a template to show you guys, this area up in here of the top and the back range. And so it'll go from 2.2 to 2.5 millimeters on the outside up to 2.4 on the inside. So it's a little thicker up here. But in the center, where it takes a lot of the stress, on the back specifically, it's about 4.5 millimeters thick here. Saw that there, 4.5 millimeters thick here. But on the top, it's a little under 3. And so each area that you see here serves a slightly different purpose in the vibration of the top to create the sound. The back is a soundboard, literally. So the sound that's vibrated off of the top changes the air, pumps the sound through the box, bounces off of the back, and comes out of the F-holes. And that's how you get your sound. And so if you changed the back to something that was not very dense, let's say if you made it out of balsa wood or something, it would absorb the sound versus reverberating or bouncing the sound off. That's why it's traditionally done that a maple is done for the back, to get the tone. But you could change it to a very dense cherry or a walnut or something else and tone the sound that comes out. But this graduation process is what I'm about to start. So you'll see me mark these shapes onto the insides of my plates and then start to hollow that out and use a set of calipers basically to get the right thickness everywhere on my plates. It's funny because I've actually cut out templates for these shapes, but I just really enjoy making these dots. So we'll do that for a little while. It's all about doing the things that you enjoy in the process versus trying to find a shortcut, because sometimes shortcuts are great if you don't enjoy what you're doing. If you enjoy it, why shorten it?
It's always been dark in my head, baby born and bred. When I'm headed off to bed, spirit in the flesh. You were right and I
so rewarding.
was wrong all along. I was selfish, blind and headstrong. Put a blanket by a mulberry bush. Oh, I love you. Come on, baby, give me a push. How I need you. Not sure where you're running to. but I wish that I was going.
So here's the top, getting closer, using hand planes to get the majority of the rough stuff out, and then small luthier planes to kind of carve in a little bit and rough it out. And then I'll get down to sanding and scraping to get my final dimensions.
Come on, baby, give me a push. I need you. Put a blanket by a mulberry.
So I'll keep working on this and then show you how I measure the thickness in just a little while. Alright, so I'm working on hollowing out the inside of this. It's getting closer and closer. And so what I actually use is a little dial gauge that I will then put on here to tell the depth of the plate, or the thickness of the plate, instead of using some calipers or deep throat or anything else. But once I get it where I like it, I'll actually put a little circle, tell it not to touch it. So I end up with plates that look like this, with a lot of little dots at first, just a couple, and then I will sand or scrape everything except my dots. And then once the whole thing is full of dots, I'll do a final scrape over, and that would probably be it. So I'll work on this for a while, and then I'll show you some results on a light table. All right, here's where we're at right now. I'm standing at a light table. I'll show you why I have this piece of cardboard here in a second, but here are all my marks that I mentioned earlier. Is when I hit a spot where I'm actually really close, like a couple thousandths of a way to the final dimension, I'll mark it. So once I get enough of these, I'm going to check for smooth transitions across the whole plate. And the best way to do that is not only with calipers, but with a light table. And so you'll see why in a second. But I'll draw attention to the edge. I still have a lot of edge work to do. I'm getting the majority done. I'll go back in and feather this edge in, and you'll see it here in the light table. So let me flick out the lights, and I'll put this here. The cardboard's here because it's hard to get on camera, actually what you see in person. Alright, so we're clearly in the dark right now. I'm going to flip this on. I've got the rest of the light table blocked off. And you can see our plate here, how even the transitions are. And so what I do is I use this as a tool to see where I need to take away more material. I need to scrape and sand this little area. You can see where that's inconsistent. You can see a little bit down here, right? But mainly I wanted to show the edge work. You can see how much of the edge that I needed to bevel out and take off. So there are areas where I don't want to take away too much, that I'm almost there. You can also see the final shape of our tail block and our top block where our neck's going to go. But everything else around here, I'm going to get an even light and transition so it's one smooth tone across. Now, these will be different thicknesses. You can see this is thinner than this, which is what it's supposed to, but those transitions will be even. So, kind of a cool tool to see how thin this actually is. So I know it's dim, but here it is. Before I turn the light on, I've reworked my edges a little bit, so you can see the difference here around the edges. I'm almost dialed in on a couple places. I have one patch that's a little darker in here, but it's the right thickness, so we can see it. Get that light out. So now you can see the kind of consistent edging, right? Where it's thinner up top, where it's supposed to be. It's thicker in the middle, you can see that. And then it's thinner again down here. You can see my little pillow top edges right here, these little dark spots. That's the sculpting on the top showing through on the back, and I'm fine by that. But what I really want is that nice solid block at the bottom, the solid block at the top, and you can see those delineated kind of zones. So we're almost there. All right, so our back is pretty much done. You just saw it on a light table. What I like to point out is not only how thin this is, but look how flexible it is. You can see how this thing twists and warps. You want that to be able to move. So the back though won't wiggle like this, but it will be close to as thin. So we'll move on to our back. So our back is right here. I still have a little bit of work to do on the inside, but we're moving right along.
It used to come so easy. Now I sleep till the morning's gone and the birds sing in the evening. I wonder what I live for. Folks I love, they fade like chalk in the downpour on the ground floor. But in my mind when I'm home, I just feel so alone.
So I know the lighting is not built for camera, it's built for working here, but this is where I'm almost at with the back. It does have its little bit of flexibility, but nothing like the front. But you can see all this nice curl in here. So I'm just doing the final scraping of the last like thousandth of an inch, couple thousandth of an inch. Just around the edges. Everything else is pretty good. So once I get the rib structure out, we'll do a final fit up around this edge. But I think that's about it for the pair. So I got front ready and the back ready.
I'll be your alibi. The body's changed.